Welcome to my little kitchen studio again, where I put together my little videos for science. About 2.5 years ago, I went on this quest to find out everything I could about the latest in biology to discover a cure for cancer. And in the process of doing all the study and spending thousands of hours in research, I determined that there is a cure for cancer. And it's really quite obvious, but it's not what people think it is. The first thing I want to discuss is what cancer really is, okay? Cancer is when a cell a human cell, somehow or other, it loses the information needed for it to grow and do its proper function. Let's say this is a cell for a tissue in your lung. And what happens to it is that cell, there's like these 4 points in the DNA, C, T, G, A, okay? If even one of these were to be deflected and changed and become a T instead of an a G, then that cell would no longer function to produce the normal cell growth into tissue that represents the tissue of a lung. And what happens is it becomes what's called malignant, and it grows off, and it does all these weird things, and it grows off in really strange patterns, and it grows rather rapidly, and it has a tendency to be weaker than a normal cell in a human body. So what happens, let me use my glass cleaner. Is that cancer is a normal life function. It's a part of what was built in to the human genome at the very beginning when the first human was built. And because humans only show, actually, there's no such thing as evolution on this planet. There's only de-evolution or de-evolving or continually losing gene function. You can do a study on this like I did, and what I did was I presented this to every single person who believes in evolution on the internet, PhDs, students, people that are trying to become medical doctors, people that are trying to become biologists, people want to be cell biologists, people want to research and do genetics. I presented to genetics, PhDs in genetics, and none of them could present me with enough information that would make me want to believe that evolution was actually a factor of science, because everything that I looked at was de-evolving. And I always use this example because it's very clear. A wolf can very easily be traced by DNA to dogs. Okay? Dogs are a de-evolved wolf. A wolf is a far more fit creature, far more cunning, far more able to survive in the wild. It is not domesticated because the original wolves that were domesticated and brought down and brought into the level of being dogs and bred and bred and bred for their weaknesses and their subservience and their ability to serve man were a human creation that's brought about by a natural thing that happens when you breed out things. In other words, In order to take a wolf and make him into a dog, you breed out things. You don't breed in things because there's nothing to breed in. The genome of a wolf cannot be improved upon. It has never been shown in any DNA study that any magical improvements. As a matter of fact, this is what they state: 70% of all mutations are negative, deleterious, bad, no good. 1% is questionable if it has any benefits, and the other 29% are so-called neutral. They have no bad effects or no good effects. They can't determine what the mutation does. They have no idea where it comes from anyway. So, I'm going to erase the board now. Give me a second. So knowing that there's no such thing as evolution, that all we have is de-evolution and traits and gene expressions that are removed from the genome through the process of de-evolution, which is the natural events that occur in nature when a creature passes down over thousands and thousands of generations. So what happens to the human beings is that they start out with this ability to ward off or fight off a natural element that's put on this earth, and it's called solar radiation. And solar radiation is radiation. It's the same type of radiation that takes place when an atomic bomb goes off, even though it's fission, fusion, and the two have a similarity. But when these reactions take place, like in the sun, what happens is it gives off radiation. And radiation is the basic foundational energy of the universe, traveling at the speed of light. And radiation travels in what they call waveforms. They look like this, you know, and they're modulated, which means that they can be modulated like this, or like this, or like this, and they can change their frequencies, and they can be any frequency from below sound to way above the light spectrum into the gamma rays. And we don't even know beyond the gamma rays because we don't have anything that can measure that. But we do know that when an atomic bomb goes off and it radiates the human being, that it can cause cancer. Cancer is one of the primary things that it does, because what it does is it burns up the cells, and the cells start to mutate. And they mutate, and they mutate, and they mutate, and they deform the body that the radiation takes place in. And it kills people in a short amount of time. But what cancer does is, if you're out in the sunlight, naturally, it's the sun radiating down all these rays of energy, okay? And here you are, a fully integrated human being, living in nature where you belong. I like to stick figures. And the sun is radiating down on you. And your body is made to take the sun's radiation. And it's also made so that when one of these cells gets screwed up and gets hit by this radiation, and it comes in, and one of those cells gets screwed up to the point where when it reproduces, it's missing some of those features. Let's say there's 2 points on this DNA of this cell that get hit by radiation. And all of a sudden it starts to mutate, and it turns into a cancer cell. It starts growing in weird ways and weird shapes, and it does all kinds of weird stuff because it's no longer a normal cell. And it grows rather rapidly, and it follows the pattern of trying to grow a normal cell, but instead it grows something that's malfunctional. It does not function in the human body. And as it grows into the tissue, it actually takes over, and whatever tissue that it was normally intended to be, it will still go in and try to replace that tissue that's within that lung tissue, or the liver, or the heart, or the thyroid, or the testicles, or the bowels, or wherever it's going. It's going to try and replicate the original cell intent. And so it goes towards the areas of the body where that cell would normally grow, except this time it's growing as a malignancy, or as a tumor, or a blood cell, or a bone cell, or whatever it's growing into. It will develop into this because that's its nature. But the original human beings had a wonderful thing that was built into them that's no longer in many people on Earth right now. And that's the ability of their body, so that when this cell comes up and it has that mutation in it, it recognizes that cell right away and it destroys it. So it cannot reproduce. This ability is in the immune system of the human being. A properly made human being would never allow a natural thing such as sunlight, water, a natural toxin, a virus, a bacteria, to cause a mutation to live, because it would kill the mutation along with the virus. So what we see happening today is that the geneticists that believe in evolution are looking at this thing in a completely wrong way, because there is no evolution. There's no magic that comes along and produces a new type of cell. There's no magic that comes along and rebuilds the human genome that's already been reduced in its functionality through a process of de-evolution. It's a one-way path downwards, and it cannot be fixed unless you have the ability to go in and do genetic engineering on the individuals and try to produce offspring that don't have the genetic defects. We know that genetic defects exist because in the Human Genome Project, they've mapped out over 2,000 genetic defects that result in genetic diseases. 2,000 of these things have transpired in the human body that they know of, and they're still counting more and more every day, because they've only done a very small amount of the population of the world. The reason why they know these are defects is because they have samples of people who don't have those genetic diseases, and that gene function works to produce the desired result in the body. In other words, Crohn's disease, arthritis, cancer, diabetes, all of those things can be seen in the genome, and you can see what the cell was supposed to look like, and you find the people who have the cells that are reproducing correctly. You check out their genome and you'll see that that particular spot in their genome is correctly operating. So we have examples of correctly operating parts in various bodies, but they don't seem to be in one individual person with a perfect genome. Every single one of us is defective, and we're defective because as soon as we stepped outside of the natural environment where we belonged in the very beginning, where we were intended to live, where everything was in balance based upon how we were built, the foods were proper, the environment was proper, the temperature was proper, everything about the environment was proper for where that human being was placed originally on this earth. There is no such thing as evolution. I've traced through every single thing that they call evolution. And when you look in the DNA, all you can see is gene loss and malfunctioning gene parts and a general gradual de-evolution of every creature I've ever looked at. Even the old-fashioned bacteria from millions and millions of years ago was much more fit to survive in much more harsh environments. And it's actually de-evolved to the point where you can boil water now and kill bacteria. The original bacteria could withstand temperatures beyond volcanic temperatures in calderas and boiling water, and you still see samples of those today in actual geysers and stuff where this bacteria still lives. So the point is, human beings all naturally have this ability to wipe out cancer cells and get rid of this little defect immediately by destroying that cell. As soon as it got radiated, it would be destroyed by the immune system. Now, through a process of us coming along with modern medicines, things have happened that have caused people with defective immune systems to reproduce. And they reproduce past the age of, say, 25 to 40 years old before the cancers start to show up in their body. And most of the time it's around 35 years old from what I understand, especially for breast cancer and ovarian cancer and cancers like that. It's right after the reproductive years. For some reason, this happens. And my understanding of this is that this person, this cancer-prone person, has a weakened immune system through a process of allowing that immune system to live. And one of the things that's causing these immune systems to live is antibiotics. Antibiotics have saved a lot of people's lives, okay? But antibiotics go after bacteria and strains of bacteria that would normally kill a person with a weakened immune system. But the weakened immune system is unable to go after the normal cancer cells and get rid of it. Antibiotics can do nothing about cancer cells. It takes a healthy immune system that produces the right kind of biochemistry to wipe out these cancer cells. Cancer cells are a natural product of being alive and being human. They are not a defect. They are part of everything that's happening on our earth and has been happening since the beginning. Because radiation deforms cells. We all know this. And radiation is a natural occurring thing from the sun that's been going on since there was a sun and since there were humans. In order for humans to reproduce and live, they would have to have an immune system that was capable of wiping out these cancer cells for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. However long mankind has been on the earth, they really don't know. The estimates are between 500,000 right now to 200,000 years that human beings have been on the earth as modern humans. Well, in 200,000 years, a lot of genetic defects can occur as people change the environment that they live in. They live more inside, they eat foods that are not proper, they eat poisons in their foods like DDT that we ate for so long when I was a child. Killed all the fish out in the bay where I used to live. All those poisons I ingested, and I'm sure it had some deleterious effect on my DNA and the structure of my body, and I'm sure I passed it on to my children because guess what? As soon as you have a defect in your genome, it doesn't go away. It doesn't fix itself. There's no magical evolution fairy that comes in and fixes your DNA and makes it better. There's nothing in process anywhere shown on the face of this earth that shows that simple life has ever become more complex. It absolutely does not occur in nature. It does not occur anywhere on this planet. I have never seen it. Anybody, I've asked thousands of people to show me this, show me exactly how it happens, and all they come up with is some magical idea that there's this random magical event that causes this good change in the genome out of some irrational reason that the environment forced this thing on it, and if it didn't happen, the creature wouldn't survive. Well, the facts are totally against all this because we've had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of creatures go extinct who lived at one time under a certain environment. Right now we have several creatures right now going extinct: the tigers, the lions, the giraffes, the chimpanzees, the gorillas, the orangutans. All these creatures are going extinct. It's because they don't have the ability to defend for themselves in this environment that we're in, and so they're dying off. There's no such thing as evolution. But anyway, getting back to this, antibiotics allow people with a weakened immune system to live and reproduce. And if their immune system was halfway strong when they were a child and able to function, they got through childhood, they got through, they got through the ability to have babies. And then as soon as they got to the age of 35, their weakened immune system was no longer able to zap these cancer cells. And so now the cancer cells are able to reproduce inside their body. And part of this, I've seen people do natural holistic health where they've actually so-called cured people with cancer. And the first thing that I discovered about this was that the cancers that they had were not so bad and they weren't so advanced. And basically what they did was they changed their diet, put them on fresh vegetables and vitamin pills, and gave them lots of fruit and cleaned their bowels out. Because the bowels are the #1 place where bacteria grow in your body, and if your immune system is going to be working on something, it's going to be working on the bacteria in your bowel system and not able to kill or zap these cancer cells. So when you take the immune system that's been weakened by the bowels and areas of your body that it goes to where the most disease is, and it goes after it. And if you have a clogged up bowel system, you have polyps in you have festules, you have benign cysts, you have all these things going on in your bowel system by the kind of foods that you eat, like white flour, just like eating glue, and meat that's been processed and not cooked correctly would have bacteria going into your bowels. So all of a sudden your immune system is going after that, and it's not going after the cancer cells. So these people that were over 35 had cancer showing up, and the doctor saw it. Oh my God, you're going to die of cancer. And they go to the holistic health practitioner and he puts them on this diet. All of a sudden, their immune system that's actually still functioning, but not fully, is able to zap the cancer, and the cancer goes away. They go into remission, they call it. But there are people out there with a completely zapped immune system, and part of the process is that it's just something that happens with their age and with their genetics, that all of a sudden their immune system, which is weakened to begin with, is no longer young. You could say that at the age of 35, they're ready to die because their body is no longer functioning fully. The immune system is no longer functioning, so they're no longer able to stop the cancer, so they get cancer and they die. Now, naturally, in olden times, before we were able to fight off cancers, these people would just die. But unfortunately, they had already reproduced, because at the age of 35, they already had children. And the children, of course, carry the genomic features of their body that causes the cancer, which is the weakened immune system. Okay? Now, antibiotics will help you to live longer against viruses and mostly bacteria, okay, that attacks your body. You know, all the strep and all that stuff that used to kill people they're now saving people's lives with this. But the problem is the immune system is not improved by bacteria, by anything that kills bacteria, does not necessarily kill cancer cells. So antibiotics do not kill cancer cells. So what does? Well, what we need to do is stop with all this crap about thinking there's some magical way they can go in and fix the genome of these people, because that's not going to happen until, we become much, much smarter than what we are now. There's no human on the face of the earth that I know of that's much smarter than I am. I'm not just saying that. I'm saying because I was tested. And if they can't realize that this is the cause of cancer, and that cancer is a natural thing in the physical world that's caused by radiation from our sun, but the human genome was designed to fight this off from the very beginning by killing these cancer cells with a powerful immune system. Okay? It just so happens that there's people out there that have overly developed powerful immune systems right now, and I happen to be one of them. And I don't know of any cancer in my family. I do know of a lot of of spastic immune-related problems, like rheumatoid arthritis my sister has. That's where your immune system attacks your joints, because your immune system is so powerful it attacks your own joints. I have diabetes. My two brothers have diabetes. I was able to ward off diabetes until I was 61 years old. And what happened to me was I came down with the flu. And my immune system kicked in so hard to kill that flu that it killed the islets that produce insulin in my body. And now I'm like a type 1 diabetic. I'm on insulin all the time, 24 hours a day, just to stay alive. So a lot of the things that have happened to me have kind of clued me in on the reality of what we're dealing with here. There is no way to rebuild the genetic structure of my body that weakened my pancreas and overdeveloped my immune system so that it killed my pancreas. There's no way to take that out of my genome at this moment. There's no magical doctor that can go in and fix it. And if they do, they're going to wind up screwing up a lot of people's lives in the process, and they have no idea the results of these experiments when you try to change somebody's genetic makeup when you're dealing with 3.2 billion base pair points. And most humans that I know of can't even keep track of 10 things at once. How in the hell can they keep track of 3.2 billion base pairs and what's happening within all those base pairs? When you make one change to that genome, you affect the whole thing. You reduce the ability for it to survive more than likely. You'll cause an artificial de-evolution the more you mess with the genome. Now things like alcohol and drugs and antibiotics and pollutants, cancer-giving things like the things in the water that keep the bacteria out of the water are also carcinogenic and can cause cell problems. So part of the thing too is that the solar radiation can actually cause cell damage to a pancreas. It can cause cell damage to anything, you know. And if your immune system goes in and tries to kill these cancerous cells that are in your pancreas, it'll also kill the other ones as it's attacking the same type of cells. So the point is, there is no cure for cancer that we have right now that'll hit it on the genomic basis and reproduce the ability of that immune system to fight off cancer. It just is. And typically the people who have this characteristic to get this disease much quicker than other people are light-skinned people from northern climates where there was not much sun, okay, and where they've been using antibiotics for some time, and where the general thing is that a weakening of the immune system has taken place, and also the sun's rays has not been hitting them too hard until they moved away from there. Well, in the United States, we have tons of these people that have moved to places like Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, all these places where the sun is not filtered by the atmosphere. In other words, they're lower on the earth. Here's the sun, here's the earth, okay? The lower the sun is towards the equator, the more intense it is. And the higher the altitude, the more intense the sun is. At 5,000 feet up, the ultraviolet light is very intense. Okay? At sea level, at the 50th parallel, the sun is very weak because it's coming in at low angles all the time. Even in midsummertime, the sun just barely gets above the top of the buildings because the angle is still so low that it's filtering out through so much more atmosphere. So the people that live above the 50th parallel and move to the south or move to the United States or move to Italy or wherever they move to, usually they're taking a weakened genome with them that was not required to have this powerful immune system that killed off these cancer cells like this so much because the radiation was not hitting them. So they naturally devolved into people who didn't have this ability, okay? They have other abilities. They lived off plagues. They went through bacteria. They went through the swine flu. They had all these things that happened to them. But when parts of that culture were able to survive with the weak immune system and antibiotics came along, then all of a sudden we've got these 35-year-old people, and all of a sudden their immune system that was able to function in youth is no longer able to function past the childbearing age. And so the cancer cells come in, they reproduce, they can't be killed because the immune system is no longer functioning. There are other reasons for this, but the natural reason that we have this ability to kill off cancer cells was built into the genome in the very beginning because the sun was very intense, and most of us came from an area where the sun was much stronger. They think it's from the Middle East or Africa, near Israel. They found some human remains that are over 500,000 years old just recently of modern humans. So it's very likely we came from a place where there was really intense sun all the time, and all of us probably had much darker skin and much more able to tan and withstand the sun's rays. Okay? As you went farther south, the ability to be darker went darker. As you went north, the ability to make a tan was no longer necessary because there wasn't enough sunlight to even make a tan. So my point is, here's the cure. DNA replication of the biochemicals that kill cancer cells. I gotta spell that right. We need DNA replication, the biochemicals that zap the cancer cells. Cancer cells are a natural thing in our genome. The normal human genome, as it was made in the beginning, was designed to zap them and kill them. Cancer is on the rise more so than it ever has because the genomes are much weaker than they've ever been, and people have much more weakened immune systems, and we use antibiotics to allow people to live who have a weakened immune system, and they just keep on going. And they live long enough to reproduce, and then they reach a point where the biochemicals in their body that are produced by their immune system are no longer strong enough to kill off the cancer cells, and so they get cancer. So the same way that we've learned to reproduce insulin, which is a biochemical built by the pancreas in the islets there, and are required for a diabetic like myself to live, to process food, the same type of process needs to be done to zap these cancer cells when they first show up and not allow them to grow, because once they grow into clumps, they become very difficult to get rid of. Even when the immune system is functioning fully, and it can't kill off a big tumor. It's not going to kill it. It has to be done. And tumors are a result of the immune system that it kind of goes around it and covers it up and tries to seal it off from the rest of the body. That's what cancerous tumors are. The body tries to stop it from spreading. So there's a thing in the body that stops the tumors from spreading, and there's also a biochemical in the body that kills these cancer cells as soon as it sees them, senses them, I guess you'd call it. So we have to get back to the basics of the way humans were actually made in the beginning, find the people who have functioning immune systems, find the biochemicals that kill these cancer cells, and then do DNA testing. Of all people to determine if they have a weakened immune system, and to continue to test them for cancer. And as soon as they see the first cancer cell being detected, and the 1 to the billion parts in their blood system, then they put them on the biochemicals, that match the immune system of a healthy person that zaps these things, and they're going to remain on those biochemicals until the day they die. And they'll probably live a lot longer and be cancer-free up into their 90s or even 100 or even 120, and however long they're going to live when all the other bodily functions are still working. As long as they keep those cancer cells from ever developing, they're not going to have any malfunctioning organs caused by cancer cells. But they have to remain on some kind of a drip, some kind of an injection that goes on daily, several times a day, or it's going to be pumped in just like they pump in insulin to people now. And they'll be able to go in for testing and see how it's working. You don't want the immune system chemicals to be too strong, because then you'll cause diabetes. You'll start attacking the islets you start attacking parts of your body. You don't want to induce somebody with arthritis, any of the autoimmune diseases. You don't want those to be increased. You want to get it just balanced the way a healthy person would be, so that these cancer cells can't live. If you go off too far and you make it too strong, then you're going to create the other diseases that are caused by an overly powerful immune system. And what they do now for overly powerful immune systems is that they give them drugs that repress the immune system to make it stop attacking the joints, and then they become more likely to get cancer and more likely to get bacterial infections, viruses, because their immune system's been diminished by these pills. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, is to give somebody with arthritis something that completely blocks out their immune system so that they're not able to fight off other diseases and not able to fight off cancer. All you're doing by blocking the immune system is inviting cancer. Anyway, this is my thesis over my 2 years of the study of evolution, genetics, DNA, cancer, and almost every disease that I've ever studied is all related to a de-evolution of human beings. There is no increase in genetic structures in any creature that adds more fitness or better ability to survive on this earth. Everything is going in the opposite direction. If we're going to live, we're going to have to learn how to artificially create these things that are no longer being produced by our bodies for us to survive. If you love your loved one that's dying of cancer right now, you need to get them on a path of getting some biochemicals in that will kill these cancer cells directly, that go directly after them and do not kill the healthy cells in the body. What we have now is we have ways of radiating this and chemically treating it with poisons and toxins where all the hair falls out and the people get sick and they're nauseous and they want to vomit, and they give them pills to mess up their immune system and everything else to do except what they need to do is correct the immune system, so the immune system goes in and kills off the cancer cells. You can't correct the immune system, so you're going to have to come up with the biochemicals that match a healthy immune system that specifically targets cancer cells. If we can't do that, then the medical industry is really a bunch of screwed up, brainwashed losers. If you can't do something like that. You've been able to come up with a way to keep diabetics alive. Why can't you find some way to match the biochemicals that kill cancer cells in a human being that come from the human immune system? That's the only place it can come from. Anyway, I have a strong objection to people who believe in magical things and science. And evolution is one of those magical things. Oh, we all evolved from single-cell amoebas or whatever the hell they think. And then the fish jumped out of the water and it grew legs and it grew wings and it started flying and it turned into a bird and then it turned into mammals. And then all of a sudden one day it bopped along and it turned into a human being in some billion years or whatever the hell it is. There is no evidence of that ever taking place on this planet. The only thing we have evidence for is a healthy genetic structure that has continually degraded in all creatures. The predecessor of the elephant was much bigger, much stronger, had more hair, was much more capable of surviving in more harsh environments. The predecessor of the cat, the saber-toothed tiger, much bigger, stronger bones, big street teeth that could just rip the flesh out of anything to survive with. Much more capable of surviving than a modern cat. This is my 21-year-old cat. That is frail as can be. The best they can do is catch a mouse. You put them outside in the cold in the wintertime, I doubt they would survive very long. They'd have to find a source of food and fend for themselves. Saber-toothed tiger. I mean, let's get real. You know, everything that I've seen points to this. And if you can find any place on any genetic lineage where any speciation event comes along and changes something, where something got better, stronger, healthier, whatever, you'd be the first person on Earth to actually discover that, because it does not exist on this planet. So instead of thinking in the wrong direction that you can somehow fix the genetic makeup of people with this feeble human mind that can barely concentrate on 10 things at one time, barely. I'm a genius. I'm able to concentrate over 100 things and put them all together and come to conclusions. This is where I came up with this conclusion. The reality is you cannot fix the genome. There's no way for us to fix it. We don't have the technology that was used, or the tools that was used to make the genome as strong as it was in the very beginning. Instead of following this nonsense, we need to work on cures that are based upon reality. And the reality is that cancer is caused by a natural thing, radiation, toxins that we come across every day. A healthy human being is able to fight off these cancer cells and destroy them immediately. A non-healthy person is going to allow them to grow in their body. So the methods we have now for curing cancer are extremely painful, full of suffering, and unnecessary. If we can start with a new direction, which is to find the biochemicals and the healthy specimens that kills these cells without attacking other cells, that's the only thing that's going to work. We can't come up with anything artificial, because nothing artificial that we know of can do this. It was invented by whoever invented us to make this chemical that will zap out these cancer cells. So why don't we go and find out what the inventor gave us within the immune system of the human body, check it out, put some cancer cells in a petri dish, put human immune cells on there and see what happens. See which ones kill it. And then we got to start duplicating that biochemical compound that actually kills these cells without harming all the other cells around it. This is my thesis. This is my PhD. This is my offering to humanity. If you want to do something with this, that would be very smart, very wise of you. If you don't, somebody's going to figure this out someday, long after you're dead, and you will not get credit for any of this. So if you want to help me with this, we can work together. We can find a cure for cancer, but we got to go along with the way we were made, not by some magical nonsense that has never been shown any time, any place on this earth that anything's ever become more fit by magical processes. All we see is less fit by environmental causes. And by the way, we need to stop eating crap foods. We need to stop messing with the genetics of the food supply. We need to stop messing with what we know to be incorrect. Animal fats are very bad for your blood supply. They clog you up. Hydrogenated vegetable oils, God, you need to stop that. Look, in all the bottles, packages of food, hydrogenated vegetable oil. It's in all the freaking donuts. It's in all the candy bars. It's in half the damn foods you have on the shelf. You pull the can out, hydrogenated vegetable oil. Guess what that stuff does? It's like glue in your arteries. It can't be digested. It only goes into your arteries and it sticks. So you don't want hydrogenated vegetable oils either. A vegetarian diet, free of all that stuff, with some proteins from milks and maybe eggs and beans and rice and all those things, is far better for you than eating hamburgers that are full of fat and carcinogens and things that actually screw up your immune system. Because what happens is in meat, there's all kinds of hormones that you're also eating when you eat meat that affect your well-being and affect your body in bad ways. It's a biochemical. It's not good for you. Anyway, enough of my preaching about this, but anyway, you need to find a cure for cancer, and this is it. This is the only one we got going.